Put a baby in the garbage?
You gotta watch that movie.
You gotta watch it.
You
It's
gotta
so
watch
good.
Shit is
It's so
dude.
good.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Queer Peer Reviews, where we review queer media, good, bad, and ugly. I'm your host, Bruce, and beside me is my co-host, Justin.
Here at Queer Peer Reviews, we'll be reviewing shows, films, and video games with queer characters and queer themes, and much more.
Today we're reviewing the 2003 Japanese animated film Tokyo Godfathers, which was written and directed by Satoshi Kon.
One of my favorite auteurs of all time. The animation is legendary, and there's so much to be said. So let's get into it.
The film follows three homeless people named Jin, Hana, and Miyuki. Jin is a belligerent alcoholic man, Miyuki is a high school runaway girl, and Hana is a kind-hearted trans woman.
So this wonderful Christmas film stars these three homeless people finding a literal infant in the garbage.
And Hana, who always wanted to be a mother, decides that they should take care of the baby. Although Jin and Miyuki are very hesitant because they're homeless and they have no resources to take care of such baby. Although Hana says otherwise, as she sees this as a gift from God.
So as you might be able to tell, the film has something to say about class and about society as a whole. And Hana specifically, having been someone who has struggled in her life, decides that she truly does not want this child to grow up in the foster care system if this infant is truly abandoned. And so they begin a long and arduous journey on Christmas or around Christmas time in Japan,
in order to find the biological mother. So after the decision of going to search for the mother, they use the locker keys they found on the baby to go to this locker in the train station where they have clues of where the mother could be. They have her photo, some form of business cards of where she worked at, and so they use this information for their journey to find the mother. After finding the items in the locker, they go on the train or in the direction of their destination. Unfortunately, because of the snow, the trains get delayed, and then Miyuki sees someone else on the other train next to them who is actually their father looking for them. As you know, she is a runaway teen, so she freaks out and jumps out of the train, and the other two follow. Other two follow and just be like, what the hell's going on? So, one of the wild things, because like I mentioned, Hana says the baby is favored or a gift from God, is because there are moments where you start questioning, is this baby really favored by God? Because in the cemetery, they find a grave with offerings of a diaper, a baby bottle, and baby formula, perfectly there.
Yes.
Like waiting for them. And Hana just keeps believing, yep, this baby is favored by God.
The trio exits the cemetery to find a man trapped under his vehicle. It turns out that this guy is actually a mob boss. And the interesting thing about this guy is that he is connected to some of the backstory of one of the homeless people, as they find out a little bit later. And for helping get this man free from being pressed and trapped under his car, they get a free ride, which again, to someone who's homeless, who's having to rub pennies together, or rather in this case, yen together, they are really grateful to have this, transportation from point A to point B.
He gives him a ride towards his wedding ceremony, wedding celebration.
His daughter is getting married, and it turns out that
as when they arrive,
it turns out the guy she's getting married to,
the groom, is the guy that scammed.
Well, so basically the Jin has a outstanding gambling debt, and the reason why is because he has a gambling addiction and he also drinks a lot, and to compensate for that, he would take money from the Yakuza. And he was running, I think they say later, he was running a store with his wife and his daughter, and he had told Hana that what had actually happened was that he was an Olympic bicyclist, and he, his wife and kids were dead. But what actually turns out to be the case is that his addiction drove a wedge between him and his family, and he was embarrassed, and he ran away instead of dealing with his problems head on, straightforward. And there have been comments over the course of the film at this point, not specifically about Jin's manhood, but about manhood in general and what it means to be a good father, to be a good man, And it's interesting because Hana has such an interesting insight being trans. There's a lot that Hana has to say and a lot of things that Jin says as well. And we see over the course of the film, and especially in this moment in the wedding sequence, what Jin is made of and what Jin's true character is.
At the wedding, Yakuza boss goes to talk to the groom about helping the three homeless people finding this one woman who used to work at one of their own clubs. Until, one of the waiters came in and straight up shot at the groom, which took a really crazy turn. And the shooter starts running, while trying to escape, takes Miyuko hostage while Miyuko has the baby.
Yeah.
So they run out while Hana and Jin also dip out as there as well because in the middle of a shooting. And so they sort of the baby, and the two they get separated. And what it leads to, Miyuko ends up falling with the hostage. And also the hostage speaks Spanish. The great thing about this movie, though, is that they never translated Spanish. But I speak Spanish, so I understood exactly what they were saying.
I understood nothing.
So it was kind of funny to me. So he basically takes Miyuko and the baby back to his house, where we meet his wife and another baby they have. And so there's like a nice little meaningful moment between the mother and Miyuki. On to the other aspect, Hana and Jin sort of have like an argument, right?
Yeah, because of the fact that they lost not only their friend in Miyuki, but they also lost Hana, they also lost, they named the baby Kyoko, which Kyo means pure, and that's why they named the baby, or why Hana named the baby Kyoko in the first place. And surprisingly enough, when they lose her, they end up getting into an argument about whether or not what they're doing, because as they said in the beginning, like, this is Christmas, it's cold outside, it's, three homeless people who don't have shelter. Taking care of this baby was already crazy, and so many things have happened at this point. Jin just wants to give up. But Hana goes on this, quest and is saying, like, we need to see this thing through. We've already gotten this involved, and now Miyuki is missing. Hana goes to try to find Miyuki, and in the process ends up running into a taxi driver. And
the taxi driver is funny. He's like, the thing about this movie is like it's so much coincidences. Like it creates such a small world because randomly run into Yakuza boss, who's in somewhat connection with the baby's mother. Also, we also find out the baby's mother's name is Shachiko. So Hana finds this taxi driver through a dispatcher, trying to clarify which one was the one that took the baby, Miyuko, and the hitman too. So they go on this ride, and Hana sort of like asks the taxi drivers, like, how were they acting? And they're like, oh yeah, they're all good. Then the radio shows up about an abduction involving a man, a woman, and a baby, and the taxi driver's face just like, oh, wait a minute. But despite that, Hana just like keep driving. And it takes us to the spot where Hana finally reunites with Miyuki.
They're able to find each other using, effectively through Kyoko and Kyoko's relative normal constant crying.
Mm-hmm. So when we go back to Jin, until like these group of assholes pull up during cleaning service, meaning they just beat up homeless people on Christmas. Jin, who's actually been saving money on his side here, like about 30,000 yen, they attempt to take it away, but then Jin's like, no, I need that money. And he ends up knocked out, which leads to one of my favorite scenes where while he was knocked out, he thought he saw an angel. It was like, would you like ambulance or magic? And he's like, ambulance? And he's like, no, like, you and me.
Yeah, gets upset that,
but
they didn't want to take it.
But it turns out he was actually taken in by a club of drag queens, which
coincidentally,
Hana and Miyuki also meet at that same club because Hana also used to work at that club.
Yes. Hana decides that when she finally meets up with Miyuki and Kyoko, that it's time for her to go and see her mother or her adopted mother, her found family in the drag community, the local drag community.
Cover?
Well, they go there and they find out, there's this loving embrace between these two drag queens, and they're crying, and it's Christmas, and I just want to take a moment to express how little I see that in film and in animation especially, and to have it treated with a respect. And yeah, there's a little bit of a goofiness to it. They're like laughing and crying. They've missed each other for so long, and it's this missed connection of Hana, who has clearly had trauma and some relation to motherhood and dealing with growing up and finding an authority figure that they could trust, that they could, feel seen by. And also her leaving. There's a bit of lore exposed or explained where Hana had been working at this drag bar, and someone had become very belligerent and drunk and been very rude, and she assaulted this guy who was just being belligerent and saying all these, not necessarily slurs. I don't know Japanese.
It wasn't actually slur.
Yeah.
They called her a fart.
Something
fart,
along those lines. Yeah.
It wasn't even like a real slur.
She was very upset, and she left. And what turns out is that her found family was just worried about her. They wanted to make sure she was okay, but they didn't know where she had gone. And so she finally comes back, and she's embraced with this love that, again, it just cannot be understated how beautiful the scene it was. So basically what ends up happening is they are finally all together again after the craziness of the kidnapping, the shooting, all that stuff. And they continue to proceed on their quest now with the photographs that they have.
Yeah, I think it was Hana or Jin. No, Jin, right? He figured out the image. Yeah, he saw the picture.
Inside of the home of the other homeless man who was older, who was dying, he got a photo of these towers, and he was able to recognize where that was.
So they used that image to basically find the location of their house. And they go there, and it was half demolished. And then they found out, like, this group of old ladies, because they gossip a lot, they found out that they moved out from like 3 months ago because of like some payment issues. They also said that the husband was like also just as a gambler as well, and it caused a lot of money issues. And they mentioned Satoshi was pregnant, which then also led them to think, okay, yeah, so that's the mother because there's a baby here. After getting the information from those ladies, they rest up at a store where Miyuki tries to call her father, but doesn't say any word. The father answers, but she doesn't say anything. She just cries and then just hangs up. But while then Hana and Jin are at the store getting supplies or food from the money they got, and while everything seems to be good, Hana also seems to have a bit of a sickness going on where she is coughing up blood and ends up in a hospital where Jin goes to check on her. And with the 30,000 yen that he had, he used those to help pay for the medical cost for Hana. At this hospital, as Jin walks out, Jin also meets face-to-face with his daughter, who's been working as a nurse there. That's the first time they've been meeting since he left the family. And they have this meaningful moment where they start talking to each other, saying, how's your mother, and all of that. And then Hana, walking out after recovering a bit, sees Jin talking to his daughter. Hana realizes that Jin's been lying this whole time, as you mentioned before. That it's like, wait, you've been lying this whole time, and just to get sympathy points as a homeless person. And so Hana just goes off on Jin, insulting him in front of his daughter. And
Hana storms out of the hospital, having basically spent all of the savings that Jin had saved in an attempt to give his daughter something of worth that he believed he could give her. Jin believed that there was nothing he could do aside from give some money and leave them to their own devices and try to respect their autonomy and just stay out of it. But he had saved up a small sum of money. They say, I think 30,000 yen, which I assume translates to 3,000. Miyuko and Kyoko catch up with Hana outside. Hana explains a myth, potentially, about these two onis in Japanese mythos, which is the red devil and the blue devil, where the red devil yearns to befriend humans or to make friends, and the blue devil devises a scheme in where, knowing full well that the blue devil will have to be ostracized from the community, pretends to attack the village or attack the humans, and the red oni saves them. And when that happens, the red oni is regaled as a hero and as a friend to the people, but the blue oni having never meant any harm, never really having done anything too terrible from the story that Hana says, has to leave forever. And only the Red Devil is aware of the true sacrifice of the Blue Devil. And it was a sacrifice the Blue Devil knew would alienate them from the community, and also the Red Devil, the friend that assumably they had in the beginning too. So it's this sad story about doing what's right for someone you care about. And Miyuki asks Hana, so you do love Jin. You do love him very much. And you just wanted him to be with his family, even if it meant that you'd be alone. Now, I don't 100% understand whether or not Hana was going to go back to the drag group, but it still reads as though Hana will end up alone, even though Miyuki will go back to her family, potentially having spoken and called her father and all these things, and Kyoko having found her family eventually.
So Hana and Miyuki, while walking across the bridge with the baby, they find a woman about to jump off a bridge, and so they rescue her, and she starts fighting them again. It's like, no, let me, I want to die, until she sees the baby and recognizes the baby as her own, and Hana and Miyuki also realize that it is actually Sachiko, and it's like a beautiful moment of like reuniting until Hana slaps Sachiko in the face, because also you abandon your baby, and so this is how you're gonna act now. But Sachiko explains the story is that there was no money to be like she explains that her husband actually tried to get rid of the baby because they didn't have that money or anything, and so it was her husband that abandoned the baby. And so they decided, like, all right, and so they give the baby back to Sachiko. On another, Jin is still at the hospital while he watches on the news and sees that there's the picture of the baby, Kyoko, saying, "Kidnapped baby still searching." And so, a lot of puzzles start piecing together, and so he decides to go find the address. And so he finds the address where Sachiko lived, and so meets up with the deadbeat husband. And he starts basically confronting him. It's like, because he was also a gambler, so it's kind of like seeing like himself a bit. And so he's like super mad at him, and he explains like, and why would you abandon your baby? And then the husband looks at him like, what are you talking about? That's not my baby. And it's like, she lost that baby a while ago. She lost the first baby. That's not our baby. So yeah, in the turn of events, the baby they handed to was not actually her biological mother, but Sachiko basically stole a baby because she lost her own during pregnancy. Jin basically, what happens? Like, Jin runs back to Hana and Miyuki and explains to them, like, yo.
Yeah, Jin, it's shown that Hana and Miyuki have gone from the bridge to praying at a local shrine, and meanwhile Jin is just flying down the road on a stolen bicycle, and he falls and he runs back up to them and he goes, the baby, it's not the baby. What did you do? Why did you give it to the wrong person? It's not real. So he's like out of words. He's like playing charades. It's like ridiculous.
And then this leads one to the best moment of this entire movie was just the final like act where it's like the biggest goose chase ever.
Yeah, they're like running through Japan, listening and hearing babies crying in the distance. They're like, Hana runs up to like a regular couple and is like, oh, it's not the right baby, and like runs away, and it's this like crazy sequence. Yeah. And not only that, during the sequence, they find Sachiko trying to breastfeed this baby in the middle of a playground, and you can tell that Sachiko's like having a breakdown. Sachiko is like, you need to drink or we won't be connected, and it's this very strange scene.
And so the three find her and they start chasing.
Yeah.
Hana stops for the taxi, and guess who it is? The same taxi driver that she met before.
Yep. And Sachiko steals a truck and just
zooms
off. It's nuts.
Yeah, Sachiko, the mother, steals the truck, and it becomes a very huge car chase. So in the midst of this goose chase, Sachiko crashes her truck into a building, and for wild reasons, Hana forces the taxi driver to keep driving through the building in an attempt to chase her, and so they manage to jump off the taxi driver midway and chase her on foot, where she makes it to an elevator and starts going away over the top of the tower. So on top of the building, Sachiko attempts to try to kill herself along with the baby, leaves it in a whole intense situation. And then Miyuko ends up just straight up trying to talk her out of it, while Jin and Hana are behind trying to reach all the way up to her. The husband of Sachiko and sees her on the news and then runs over to the scene and tries to talk her from the bottom of the building.
Sachiko jumps straight up. She jumps, and
Miyuko
catches her and is able to hold her for a brief time. But this is a high schooler holding a grown woman who's also holding a baby, and basically half of her body is already slipping over the edge. And right before they both go over, Jin is able to grab them both and is holding them. But when they slip and Jin catches them, Sachiko drops Kyoko. And Hana's like, ain't no time for this. Jumps over the thing, runs down the thing, grabs the baby, lands on a ledge, but slips right off because there's too much momentum.
And then grabs the banner.
And it goes super slow-mo at this point.
Yeah.
Hana grabs the
banner.
The banner says, I'm okay. And then the banner drops.
But in the running theme that God favors this baby, a random huge gust of wind happens while she's falling with the banner, and then basically like a parachute saves Hana and the baby and then lands.
You guys want to know about Sakuga? This scene right here is Sakuga. The snowflakes in the sky are glistening, the light coming in from the skyscrapers. It is a gorgeous, immaculate scene.
So after that, they're back at the hospital. Right?
Yeah, the real parents are speaking with the police, and they come to the door and they say, we know it's a little informal. They're obviously recovering from their ordeal. And the cop says, well, I would like to believe that these were a group of homeless people. And the mother and father are like, we don't care. We want to thank them for what they've done. And they open the door.
And then the police that was actually helping them was Miyuki's father, and they reunite face to face. And it's not like anything, it doesn't feel any negative. It looks like they're gonna hopefully talk things out. While Hana and Jin are just resting in bed. It's also a nice cool thing to notice is that there was a lottery happening for the New Year's, and it was like the lottery number was like all ones. And then in the pockets of one of I think Jin's pocket, has a lottery ticket that says all ones. So in a way hints at the later fact that they're gonna have a lot of money and they're gonna be out of being homeless.
Yeah.
It ends up on a very nice note. It was a beautifully dramatic and crazy movie, and I loved every minute of it.
You gotta share this Christmas film with all of your friends and family. Another one that I also really liked was Wendell and Wild. It's another fantastic Christmas film, so definitely give it a watch.
Let's say recommendations for the end, Justin.
I've been giving recommendations throughout this entire broadcast, and I will be giving many more over the course of this time.
All right, let's get to the ratings. Here, Creepy Reviews. We'll be basing off our ratings of 5 categories from 1 to 10, giving us a grand total of 100. Let's start with representation. How well did Tokyo Godfathers portray queer themes and characters?
Representation, I'm giving mine a 9.5.
I give it an 8.5. So, yeah, there's not many. The only queer characters we could ever think of are Hana and the club where all of her friends are as well. But I think it's as well, like, representation-wise, everybody was kind of respectful, except for Jin, possibly. Jin was just, like, keeps trying to, like, I guess, like, mispronouns, but, like, Hana doesn't see, like, just ignores that. Because he kind of just, like, Hana just sees, like, I guess, Jin, like, what do you, like?
I would argue that as much as there's a trio, right, and Kyoko is, like, effectively a little bit of a deus ex machina, being the god baby, it's like Hana is kind of the main character, and because Hana's the one that's like the heart of the film, and without Hana, so much would not be possible, and so much would not have happened. But that being said, Hana still has flaws. Hana is not a Mary Sue. Hana is the GOAT. I'm just saying. Big fan.
No,
Big
yeah,
fan.
no, not favorite character.
And the whole drag club too. Like the whole scene was just immaculate. They're it's like sex positive in a sense because they're not necessarily sex workers, but they're also like counterculture. Like they're outside of the established norm, and they're treated with a level of, you know, integrity, genuineness, and like humanity. And that is very, again, extremely rare for not only animation, but specifically. When did this come out? It was like 1990 something?
It was in the 90s.
Yeah. So this is.
No, 2000 something.
Oh, early 2000.
2003.
It's golden age. Golden age animation, as far as I'm concerned. So you can talk about it more in the comments if you want, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, and especially when it came to like as a representation wise, it this was it kept it at a level like also fulfilled a bit of like Hana's dream of being a mother, and so like that's why she was like so happy when she met Kyoko because like gave her a chance to feel like to be like a mother. So yeah,
and not only just Kyoko, also Miyuki. Because Miyuki was like the 16-year-old, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, you know, taking care of that
like
team.
Hana was the mother.
Yeah,
his mother group.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Incredible. Up next, Queer Comfort.
And for Queer Comfort, we give it I give it an 8. What about you?
I gave it a 7.
7. Yeah. So when it comes to Queer Comfort, Hana seems to be like, there is a comfort to this. Well, it's just a bit, I guess, like Jin constantly saying slurs.
Well, he, as far as I don't know Japanese. I don't understand. From what the subtitles told us, there weren't any slurs. It was a lot of just name calling, which seemed almost affectionate because they've been like a tight knit group for so long. Especially, that's the thing. Again, I was talking earlier
But
about
Jin's
class.
not gay.
I know, but what I'm saying is, kind of class solidarity. It's like these people have nothing except each other, and it's real, which is good, but the problem is it's a depiction of what a lot of LGBT people experience, which is homelessness.
And yeah, and what else did they respect though is Hana just like just brushes it off. She doesn't really let her bother her.
I think that's a developed trait, and I get where you're coming from, but for me, not having a more, not positive, but having a more comfortable depiction, kind of, it brought it down a little bit for me, but because they're out, and this is probably one of their better days, or one of their better weeks during Christmas when people are maybe feeling more inclined to be kind and giving and this stuff. It's in the beginning of the film. There's a segment where they're at a soup kitchen getting stuff or getting food, and it's actually kind of funny because it comes up later. Hana jokes that, "Oh, I need more food. I'm eating for 2," and this worker kind of looks confused at her and goes, what do you mean you're eating for 2? It didn't say that, but it's just very confused. And later on, this same worker sees Hana holding the baby that they found in the garbage and goes,
Oh my gosh,
really was eating for 2? Like, it's crazy. So those are the sort of interesting things and tidbits from the film, but definitely the comfort of watching a group of homeless people in the freezing cold. Again, they're treated with humanity, but they're still homeless people in the freezing cold. So I don't know how much comfort that would bring too many people, but it's comforting to see them alive and survive in the end, and also thrive if they get that lottery.
See, I think it's more comforting because they're not being hated because they're like, there's any queerness to it.
Yeah, mostly because they smell bad.
Yeah.
On the train, they were like, you snake. And the
It
baby
was more
crying.
classist than homophobic. So, but yeah, no, I think it's fair. I think it's a good movie to watch more than
still
once.
way above a 5. Still way above a 5. Please watch this movie. Please. It's free on YouTube.
Very much. Next up, originality. Give it a 10. 9.8.
9.8.
You want to be different.
Listen. There are movies I've seen.
I want you to explain the point 2 right now.
The point 2 for me is that I've seen other films that talk about homelessness or struggling and like class issues, but the LGBT aspect of this, I can't remember a film that I saw like this. And I'm hoping in the future there will be more stories about, again, a mixture of, homeless, like class stuff as well as LGBT stuff, because I feel like being counterculture is a huge, it's just like something that you don't see it in Hollywood, because Hollywood wants to talk about people who have what they have, or just like the common denominator. LGBT stuff hasn't always been the common denominator, and now we're getting to see real stories. We're getting to delve into more complex stuff, and we don't have all this Hays Code crap. So people will be able to have those meaningful stories where you have the ups, you have the downs, you have likable characters who are also flawed characters, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But this film, especially for the time and everything else, it's just so amazing, and I really want that to be reflected in this score. I say a lot of words. This is one of my favorite animators of all time.
Now, like I said, I love this, especially the first, when I watched this movie very recently, like just a couple days ago for this. It like caught my attention so much. It sticks with me as like such an original story. Like you said, like I don't think I know another movie that's like this. And so that's why I give it a 10, because it's very well done. And yeah, no, I hope to see some more original animated films like this.
Let's talk about writing.
And for writing, we give it a 9.9. You fucking did.
I didn't even see that. I didn't see that. Roll the clip back. I wasn't looking. I'm looking at you. Look at the viewer. You better like and subscribe, all right? It's one of my favorite movies.
Okay, the writing. Let's talk about the writing.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the writing. It's written like one of my favorite movies. Again, anime is such a diverse thing. And to see a story like this, written this way, written with this, again, sort of sincerity and integrity for the characters and the plot, the culture, it's such a breath of fresh air. We have stuff like Spider-Verse coming out. We said Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish. Like, there's so many incredible things coming out. And I feel like movies like this allow that to happen, especially in the field of animation, where people think, oh, I have to make the next Family Guy parody, or I have to make the next, I don't know, like Coco Melon show. This sort of thing is rare. Let me emphasize that. This sort of thing is extremely rare. And supporting these sort of things is critical. And the writing showcases that.
Look at it, it's like the video, the guy writing and like turns fire. Someone put that image of the guy writing on the paper that goes on fire and puts Satoshi Kon there. That's what happened when he made this film.
It's incredible.
It's beautiful. And what I also love about this writing is that I was coming in expecting like a very serious, dramatic movie, but when I saw as the movie went along and how crazy and like goofy it was, I was like, I love this movie. I love that it wasn't like as too serious as I see in most animated movies. This is like, it's like it mixes genre a bit once in a while. Like there was everything. We had death, kidnapping, You had
a gunfight in a fancy Yakuza lounge.
Yeah, it had everything. It had everything you need. And so, yeah, I really love the writing. I really have nothing else much to say, except it's just amazingly well done.
The world feels real, and that's extremely difficult to do. It feels weird, and it feels real, and it feels goofy and cartoony and serious all at the same time. And when you really sit down and you take the time to take everything in, it's a journey worth going on.
Mm-hmm. Next is our overall feelings towards the movie. And now we give it a
10. I gave it an insanity.
You do? You can't put that in there. 10. Movie's great.
I mean, if you got all the way to the end of this video and you're not really thinking about watching, we did spoil kind of everything. But even if you got through this film or got through this video, I would say it's still worth a watch. And if don't, get someone else to watch it.
It is worth a watch though, because it's on YouTube for free. It's right there. Just go, click on it. Go. Get out of here. We're not even going to end it.
Watch one of our videos.
Pause this video. Go watch it and then come back for the final
and then watch the rest of our videos for the rest of the recommendations we have, because they're all great.
All right, on to our QPR total. AJ, hit us.
What? Baby, one more time.
Now,
with that gay shit.
So Tokyo Godfather comes in at 92.6 out of 100, giving it an A.
Too low. I don't know why I get it. That was my fault. My bad. But so what does that lead to? That's a gay play? It's a gay.
And you want to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be aware for all of our next upcoming uploads. It's all there. It's all free. It costs you nothing. and it helps us. So why not? Why not give a little something this Christmas, like a like and a subscribe? Why not give a little something
February.
like show the love, show the love, like and subscribe. You know, come on down.
It's
We'll be
February/March,
happy to see
depending when
you.
this gets uploaded.